What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Breakdown Podcast here on Penn Live. Nick Farabaugh here, and we are talking about Bills Steelers tomorrow, second preseason game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about what we want to see, what to watch, some players that need big days, etc. So, this is going to be the true tune-up game, it seems like. I wouldn't expect Detroit to be much of that. I expect them to play more of the backups in that game and try and see where those guys at the bottom of the roster, more importantly, kind of shake out and where they can earn their keep. Where, though, I think personally, where this all kind of levels out is we're going to get to see a quarter and a half of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense against Josh Allen and Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense against the Bills first team defense, which is huge. I mean, that's a lot of sample size for a preseason game. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge sample size, of course. But it is certainly enough to where you can make some conclusions about where this thing is going. And I think that's the important thing about what you want to get out of this game. You want to get clarity about your quarterback situation. You want to evaluate young talent and see where they're going. And you want to see any holes that you might have to fill when you go to cut down day and, whatever happens around the NFL. Do you need to pay attention to corners here? Do you need a gunner? Do you need a receiver? Do you need whatever? So I think these are important things to watch. And so the first thing that just want to see is I want to see what happens with these offensive tackles. Troy Fautanu is out and is going to be out for a while with his MCL sprain. More importantly, though, you look at Broderick Jones. This is the guy that matters so much today. This is the guy that matters to see what's going on with him because I don't think the Steelers have had a good plan for Broderick Jones. He comes in last year, plays all left tackle. That's all he played during camp last year. Then all of a sudden he shifts to right, plays right, starts in right, and then he comes to camp this year. He's at right. But so is Troy Fautanu, and it looks like Troy Fautanu is going to start to get the starting reps at right tackle and is going to start week one. So they start to ship him over to left. He gets hurt, and now all he's doing is right, not left again. This is a guy that's a natural left tackle, man. And they are kind of spinning him around, and he doesn't look comfortable on either side because he hasn't settled in on either side. And it's not like Fautanu, who came out super polished, experience, just didn't have a lot of room to grow technically. Now he has some things he'll improve upon, like strike timing and punch placement, different things like that. But Jones had to rework his hands, his feet, all of these different things. He had to kind of put everything together, pad level. He was a really raw pass protector coming out of Georgia. He wasn't very experienced. He had elite talent in terms of his athletic ability, but the Steelers aren't letting him settle in one spot. And I get it. Versatility in the NFL is awesome. You love having that. But for a guy like him, he probably needed to settle one spot and learn one spot before he started shifting around. And so, I'd like to see them let him sit at one spot. We'll see if he plays left tackle and right tackle. He's definitely going to start at right tackle. We'll see what he does at left tackle. So I'm watching Broderick Jones because I thought his debut last week against the Texans was sloppy. I think the elbow might have had something to do with it. It just didn't feel like he trusted his technique at all. I don't know how much of that was tentativeness due to the elbow, but um, punch, strike, strength did not seem to be up to usual standards for him. So I definitely wonder if that is something that was bothering him at points last week. Obviously, we want to see Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Actually, if I were the Steelers, Mike Tomlin said about four drives for Russell Wilson. If it was up to me, and you're going to see that defense, that Bills defense, for a quarter and a half, I would try and get Justin Fields at least one drive against that first team. Because listen, I want to see him against those groups. I just do. I want to see Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson and kind of use it as a barometer. I want to see where Justin Fields made strides from last year. I want to see last week even where he made strides from. But what I really want to see the strides are from is from a point of view of how he do versus Russell Wilson. How did this all kind of shake out? I think it's important to kind of be able to have that one-to-one comparison when you're a general manager and a head coach making a decision like the Steelers are going to be making a quarterback. So I think it's really important in the grand scheme of things for these guys to kind of get that mano a mano. And so I would like to see one drive um, of Justin Fields, but I also think the big thing I'm going to be watching is Russell Wilson. You know, where's the mobility at with the calf? Um, how's he look in a live pocket? Probably going to run into a sack or two. That is Russ. But I want to know how he and Arthur Smith are going to marry the the strengths that he has, yet with Arthur Smith's goals, right? Because you're talking about a guy that historically does not throw over the middle of the field much. Not due to arm strength, it's because he quite literally can't see over. And so sometimes in order to see, he has to shift himself and he has to move. And it's sometimes he ends up drifting into pressure and it's a mess at times. So I'm just interested to see how you kind of mesh these two ideas. I think that's going to be something I really want to see. So I'm interested to see Russell Wilson working with the first team, how Arthur Smith and him kind of navigate all of those. We saw with Fields, you know, the quarterback run game and quick game and all those were going to be ways they were going to navigate that marriage together. I'm interested to see how they work around Russ's limitations to accentuate his strengths because he definitely still has strengths. He's a beautiful deep ball still. His arm strength's great. You know, it seems like he's getting more mobile. He was moving around pretty well at practice yesterday. So I think Russ is going to be fine from a mobility standpoint. So I'm interested to see how they kind of mesh these ideas together. Another thing I really want to see, I want to see the defense against tight ends and the slots. I want to see Beanie against Shakir. I want to see Kincaid against Queen and Roberts. And I want to see these guys because yesterday it was a massacre at times. You know, Shakir and these tight ends really beat them in the middle of the field. And that's an all too common thing that you've probably heard about the Steelers. It's what happened in the playoff game, right? They diced them in the middle of the field. And so Shakir had a huge game. Kincaid was open all the time. Folks, you need to see where that stands. I'm interested to see with Graylin Arnold out now. Man, that slot position I think is a little less certain. Obviously, Beanie Bishop's going to take the first team reps and is in line to start, but I think they need to figure out they need to add somebody from the outside. Do they need to get someone in? And I think this goes the same to Gunner. You know, we're talking about depth corner, slot corner. I want to see those things kind of pop. I want to see the depth corners. I want to see Corey Trace. I want to, you know, especially I want to see Corey Trace if Dante Jackson doesn't play. He's had this training camp like injury that Mike Solomon described. If he's not going to play, yeah, I want to see Corey Trace against that first team Bills defense. I think that would be great just to get a kind of feel of where Corey Trace is. And he's looked good in practice. He looked solid yesterday. I want to see where that is. And then I want to see, you know, Rush, Averett, rest of those guys in that corner room. But Gunner is similarly going to be another huge spot because Gunner looks rough. I mean, in terms of like needs on the team, you know, you can go depth corner and receiver and maybe slot corner depending on how Beanie looks here. I'm just interested to see with Beanie, but Gunner's like the biggest need on the team, man. I'm not sure they have one. They got really pushed around in Gunner drills yesterday. Um, and it was worrying to a degree. So I am interested in that Gunner battle and if they could have someone step up. I think one way or another, I think they're going to add someone to the corner room just to fill the Gunner role. Like that's where I'm at with that. So I definitely think they need to add someone there. I want to see the receivers again. Um, Listen, I'm going to agree with you. I feel like I've seen the same four guys. Roman Wilson, of course, is not practice, and he was playing extremely well when he was. He brought that horizontal element to the offense that I'm not sure I've seen replicated a ton outside of George Pickens um, since his injury. So I would like to see Roman Wilson play next week if he can. That would be incredible for the Steelers. But the four guys that I've seen make plays consistently are George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin III, and Scotty Miller. I mean, that's just the reality of it. These are the guys that absolutely 100% have made plays consistently, stick out. They look like the top four receivers on the team. So it's a solid Bills corner group. I want to see how they do against Rasul Douglas. I want to see Christian Bedford, Teron Johnson in the slot. I just think there's a good group of corners there that you can test them against. And I want to see, against physical corners too, because all those guys really aren't afraid to stick their nose in the pile. They will 100% come downhill and force you to block your behind off if you're a wide receiver. And obviously, that's a huge part of Arthur Smith's scheme. You're going to do those Z inserts. I didn't think Van Jefferson was great against the Texans doing that. I thought Jalen Petrie kind of flew around, gave him a little trouble at times. So I want to see how that works, where these receivers stand. I am maintaining it. I don't care if it's Brandon Ayuk or someone else. I think we're going to see a receiver added to this room before the start of the season, and I think the Steelers need it. Now, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a flashy name. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster either. But I do think that it is going to be somebody. For example, there's been recent rumblings maybe Jahan Dotson would be available in Washington. That could be an interesting path that you could explore. Um, Certainly, we've talked about Houston, with Robert Woods and John Mechie and other guys in that room. There are just options that the Steelers are going to have to explore in that wide receiver room because they need another one. And unless that wide receiver can maybe help fix the gunner problem too. I mean, it's possible you can kill two birds with one stone. Van Jefferson is a good gunner, but they're not using him on special teams. Maybe if you get a receiver that can play over him, you can start using him there. But Van Jefferson's had a wire-to-wire really good camp. I just want to see it again. I thought he had a good game against the Texans. So I want to see it again, really pop against the Bills. So there's a few things right there. And of course, I think the last thing I'm really looking forward to is Zack Frazier. It seems like to me Nate Herbig is not going to play against the Bills. So your first team reps are going to go to Zack Frazier. That's going to be 4 drives of Zack Frazier working with Russell Wilson. You'll start to get that center quarterback chemistry. You'll start to get the center with the starting line, calling stuff, calling the shots, calling protections. You're going to start seeing that start to kind of pay off, I think, as well. And so the more you kind of get to pay off with that starting guy, the more likely he is to start week one in Atlanta. If their plan is to truly start Troy Fautanu week one in Atlanta with limited practice time after this MCL injury, which, hey, listen, I don't blame him. I think the guy is ready. Um, you're going to have Zack Frazier in there ready to go if you're also planning to start him. So I think this is a really good chance for him to really step up and get looks against, Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones and other guys that are really talented on this Buffalo Bills D line. So looking forward to seeing Zack Frazier. I think if he has a good game, he will solidify that. I think the wins are already moving towards him starting week one, but I want to see him really prove himself here against the Bills. All right, everybody, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. We'll be back tomorrow at the game. We'll have a rewind after the game, and then we'll be back on Monday, of course, with more coverage, folks. Thanks for listening. As always, see you later.